Hey everybody, today I'm just going to be quickly talking about your Legion raid selection, just going over a few of the utility of some of the classes and what some of the classes I think will be mandatory in raids. So first off, as you see on the screen, this is just our Google document, just basically of what I've just got this off Reddit. It's pretty much, I've just linked this to everybody and just got everybody to put down exactly what they want to play. So everyone gets a chance to, have a fresh start, play whatever they want. And we kind of worked out the group from there. So one of the most important things, I think, unless you're going for, honestly, like top 20 world, just get people to play what they want to play. You have to realize it's a game. People need to be, having fun, and that's one thing that I try and really enforce in our raids, is that if you're not having fun, you don't really need to be there. So first, we're going to be going over just a few things that I've kind of had to think about and what I think will be really good for your raid and most raids in general. So the first thing is personal loot. So with the changes to personal loot in, I think, 6.1, it's guaranteed a piece of loot for every 5 people. So what does that mean? So every time you kill a boss, an individual person has a 20% chance to get a piece of loot. So if you're in a 40-man group, you're going to be getting 8 pieces of loot. Or we'll put it to a 20-man group because that's what Mythic is. So in 20-man, you're guaranteed to get 4 pieces of loot, but everyone individually has a 20% chance to get a piece of loot. Whereas Master Looter is you have a guaranteed piece of loot for every 5 people, and then a 20% chance for every other person in there. So in a 20-man group, the boss is going to drop 4 pieces of loot. With personal loot, the boss is going to drop 4 pieces of loot, but everybody has their own individual chance to get a piece of loot. So, on a boss fight, you can be getting lucky, and you can be getting a minimum of 4, and a maximum of 20. So, it's not going to be uncommon for you to go clear Emerald Nightmare in the first week, and every other boss might drop 6 pieces of loot. That won't be an uncommon situation. So, unless you're running split clears or you're trying to prioritize loot on people, personal loot is the way to go, and it will solve a lot of issues in a lot of lower guilds where loot is a big deal and people do want to be getting, priority over trials and whatever. So the way we've set it up, we're going to be doing personal loot pretty much for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then we're going to be switching back to master looter after that, so we can start prioritizing loot to people who have, very low item level pieces. So, they might still have a heroic dungeon piece of loot, and then they can go get their mythic piece of loot from a boss. So, they get a 45 item level upgrade over someone who might be getting a 15 item level upgrade. The other thing that makes personal loot a very attractive option is the fact that personal loot, now you can trade your items if you have an equal piece of loot or greater than the item level of the piece of loot. So, you happen to get a chest off in a boss, and then you happen to get a chest off the last boss. You can trade that chest piece you got off the last boss to somebody in your group that's on the same armor type. So personal loot, I would recommend doing, if you're not doing split clears, it should net you a higher amount of loot, especially in the first few weeks. And because especially there's no tier in Emerald Nightmare, you don't need to be prioritizing people's 4-piece and 2-piece and everything else. So, yeah, so personal loot is going to be our way forward. So the first thing we're going to be talking about in the raid composition will be tanks. So all the tanks in Legion are actually looking pretty good. Probably the weakest link I found was Demon Hunter, and they actually just got a pretty big buff to a lot of their spells, and their mastery in particular. So Demon Hunter probably will be up there with all the rest now. So this really, between the tanks, it all comes down to utility, and whether there's boss mechanics that one tank is just simply better than other ones to do. So have things like monks who can pretty much just immune bosses constantly, or you have things like paladins who can just get one hit by bosses 3 times in a row and still be fine. But then you also have to consider things like the warrior leech aura. That 3% leech is huge. That's that one leech aura, if you think about it over 20 people, is 60% of a healer. Well, probably not, but it's, it's about there. Like, it is a lot of healing that goes out. It's similar to like that leech trinket that you found in HFC. It's very good. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of top end guilds just running double warrior tank simply because of that leech aura. The other really nice utility is going to be the mass grips. They did get nerfed. They are on 3-minute cooldowns for DKs, I think, and you can tell them down to 2. And for demon hunters, I'm not entirely sure on the cooldown on theirs. But tanks all come down to utility. I know in our group we're going to have a lot of our tanks leveling pretty much every character, every class. So that's not something I'm too concerned about. It's not going to make or break the game. I highly doubt there's going to be mechanics like Manaroth where you just need 2 DKs again. Because they did make a statement that they don't really want to go back to that. So next up is really DPS. So for your DPS, there is a huge disparity between the number of ranged and melee you want. So generally you want between 7 and 9 ranged, and you want between 5 and 7 melee. Preferably you want to be dropping as much melee as you can, but nature of the beast, people like to play melee, and again, unless you're really pushing progression, you're not going to suffer from having 7 melee over 4 or 3. Unless there is the fight like, Blackhand, having too many melee isn't going to really be a problem, especially in kind of the lower end of raiding. Like, if you're not in that top bracket, don't be too concerned about it. Let people play what they want to play. So just going over a few of the classes that I think will be the strongest, just utility-wise. DPS numbers-wise, it's not really something you can be looking at just yet. You need to be waiting for the game to come out, and then, stacking mages if you want to be stacking mages, or whatever flavor of the month is. Don't be too concerned about it just yet. Just get people to play what they want to play. So one really good thing is, surprisingly, Windwalker monks. So because a lot of pretty much every class lost a lot of mobility. So the Windwalker monk itself actually gives the whole raid a 10% increased run speed. That might sound like something very minimal, but 10% increase when everybody, their speed boosts are now 40% rather than 70%. That 10% is pretty big. They can also get a legendary that increases that by 15%. So Windwalker monk, I would at least recommend having one. The other good thing is demon hunters, surprisingly. So that darkness spell, even though it is RNG, it is like a net 20% damage reduction, and it's a bigger area than smoke bomb. It is, I would say, it's strictly better than smoke bomb. It's a very, very, very strong raid cooldown. Even though people don't like the RNG aspect of it, it is, if it does mitigate on 4 people in your raid, that's the same as mitigating as smoke bomb would at 20%, even though they're 10%. So having lots of demon hunter DPS, they actually do bring something to the raid, and they do bring a lot of utility. So that is, if you are stacking demon hunters, don't be too disheartened by that. So the other thing is the stampeding roar. So if you have a feral druid, they have it on 2-minute cooldown. If you have a bear tank, actually, theirs is on a 1-minute cooldown, so that's strictly better. But the other good thing is shamans. Shamans now bring their windwalk totem, which is a 15-second totem and gives you the run speed buff of 5 seconds when you run through it. I would say that the shaman windwalk totem is better than the roar. It is situational, but the shaman one is, very, very strong. You also want a good split of classes who can just immune mechanics in general. It's pretty cheesy for a lot of boss fights, but hunters and mages generally tend to be very good just for that reason, because they can just immune a mechanic. So your warlock portals, they're always nice. That's kind of situational. We didn't really need to use it too much in HFC, but there is occasionally an encounter where a warlock will make or break the fight. And then you have the warrior commanding shout. That's probably, I would say, the second best raid cooldown after maybe the darkness. It might be the best. I mean, they're both pretty good. It is that, increased HP percentage. If you're at full HP, it's a pretty big, buffer between when you're gonna live and die. And then the balanced druid, innovates. So the balanced Druid innovates are actually insane. If anyone's been playing a healer at all, that 10 seconds of not spending mana, you're going to be regenerating mana in there. It's going to be another. It's pretty much another what 15 seconds or so. You're going to be casting at not wasting mana. Well, spending at the same mana because you're going to be regenerating during that period too. And then if you know you're getting innovates and you're calling for innovates and you can dump your chain heals, you can dump your essence fonts, or whatever your class has to do. That can be very good. So just to kind of wrap up, all the DPS do have utility. Try to prevent from stacking too many of one class, just because unless a class is specifically broken for a fight, you might run in a lot of bosses. You're just going to run into problems where you just don't have the utility you need from some of the classes, and you will kind of be kicking yourself when you do that. So get people to play what they want to play, but try and convince them. Well, try and usher them to other classes if you are stacking something. Suggest maybe a different one they can try out. It's a new expansion's a fresh start, and that's what's great about it. So, try out anything and everything. And then healers. So with the healer situation currently, there are 2 mandatory classes I would say you need. Regretfully, I'm now leaning towards a paladin being a mandatory class. So their sack, bop, and bubble pretty much make them mandatory. There's going to be a lot of encounters where things like bop just gets rid of a bleed. Oh my god, I've cheesed the boss fight. Their sacrifice is the best tank cooldown. They still have their Devo aura. They provide a just passive 1% damage reduction to the entire raid when they take that Devo aura talent. And just their tank healing in general, just even if it's not as good as it used to be, just having that constant healing on a tank is very nice to keeping them alive. The last thing you want on a boss fight is tanks just randomly dying. So one Holy Paladin I would say is mandatory, and then the other mandatory one, which I've said before, is Shaman. Shaman is ridiculously good in Legion. They're linked. The Spirit Link Totem still the best cooldown in the game. Their Healing Tide is a fantastic cooldown with their artifact trait. They get 25% increased healing in Heroism when they have 30% increased haste, and they give your whole raid that passive 10% increased HP. If you don't have a Shaman in your raid, find a Shaman. They're crazy good. So between the other 2 spots for your healers, you generally be wanting one Throughput healer, so either a Druid or a Holy Priest. Druid, I'm kind of on the fence about at the moment, because the way their mastery works doesn't actually lend themselves to being a raid-wide healer. So even though their numbers are pretty good now, that can always change. And their mastery leads them towards single target healing. So you might find they might switch around a Druid at some point just to make their mastery a big part of the class, where you want to be stacking 7 hots in the tank constantly, and you'll just become a tank healer. So the other Throughput healers, you have a Holy Priest or a Resto Shaman. So you could be bringing in 2 Resto Shamans. That's not going to be a problem. That's just more HP buffs you can be putting on people. And Holy Priest is looking to be probably one of the better Throughput healers, just for pure HPS, or a Monk. But Monk's kind of in a weird spot. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you want either a Holy Priest or a Resto Druid, and then you want a SpotHealer. So I've put that down as either another Monk, you can have another Paladin, or another Shaman. I would caution against going with 2 Druids or 2 Holy Priests, just because their healing is very slow, and it's very kind of just patty for the entire raid. You're going to need probably one other SpotHealer. So monks, what they can be doing with their mastery is if they need to fill the spot healing role in the raid, they can just be stacking mastery and then becoming just a spot healer. their mastery like scales very, very well. If they want to play that role. If they don't, they can stack haste and become a throughput healer. So if you are running with a monk, make sure you identify what role you're going to be playing in your raid. You know, it might turn out that haste is just generally better for throughput, but if you need to be playing that spot healer role because you know your raid is a resto druid and a holy priest, and you know their healing's fully AOE. You know that monk might be able to fill that role. The other thing is you can be running with another holy paladin. But yeah. So the fifth healer that I haven't mentioned yet is HPriest. So with the HPriest right now, it doesn't fit the traditional kind of style of the raid. So in a generic guide, I probably wouldn't put it in. But there's always going to be those encounters that you know you need more DPS, and it's fights like Ursoc. So Ursoc's gonna be a DPS race to pretty much kill the boss as it gets progressively harder. So you know if you can have it might still be very healing intensive, but you know there's going to be less healing when you kill the boss quicker. So bringing in that HPriest might be a better fit than one of the other healers. You know, your HPriest can always be playing Holy, your HPriest can always be playing Shadow. So I would suggest your fifth healer / hybrid kind of position, where they want to be playing, you know, healer or DPS, they don't really care, it just depends on what the fight is. Make that a priest. Priests just you know, they have 3 very distinct different roles. So a fifth healer, as you can see, that's what I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing the HPriest main, so probably during progression, we'll be trying to 5 heal a lot of the fights, unless there is a big DPS, you know, race on a boss or something where we might drop another healer. But I actually have a feeling in our raid group that we'll be 4 healing with a HPriest or 5 healing with a HPriest for a lot of the fights. So yeah. As I said at the start, as you can see, this is just our page. This is where I've pretty much just organized everybody. I think this page I've just found off Reddit, so if you just type in Legion class selection, you should be able to find it. This is where I've just been putting down information about everything about our raid, who wants to play what. Another thing I'd suggest for people to do is just try and pick up a lot of casual subs. So with Legion, you know, a lot of people are going to be coming back to the game. They might not want to be raiding full time. They might just want to be seeing the content. They might just be friends of friends. The more people you have in a group, the more loot you're going to be getting. And it's always nice to have somebody who can just fill in if someone has to go for an emergency or something. So my raid group, this is a lot of my just real life friends. So that's kind of nice. And then we just have friends of friends coming to fill in the extra spots. So we're not going to be, you know, top 100. We are looking to be probably, you know, decent. We'll be getting into mythics on the second week, but we're not going to be anything too insane. So we're just gonna, you know, take it back to 9 hours a week, and this is just how I've organized anything. This doesn't take a lot of effort to do, and it's kind of just good because if people want to be choosing a class, you know, they might not want to choose a class if there's already, you know, 3 warriors in the group, or as we have 5 monks, but they're all playing different specs, so that's all right. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for what I'm going to talk about. So with the videos, I have been, you know, contemplating on doing some more. I don't really want to be putting out guides for classes I haven't played a lot, because I do like to generally get the feel for a class, you know, see how it works with different stat priorities, and you know, see how everything plays out. I don't want to, you know, do a 4-hour kind of test on a class and be like, yeah, I know everything about this. I will be doing a lot of just boss kills and maybe some raid guides come Legion. Just depends how much time I have and, you know, if people want it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I might be doing another video actually just fleshing out what advantages personal loot has. I think that'll be very informative for some people. But yeah, let me know what you thought. Thank you.